But first, a rigged election. It's been a common refrain from Donald Trump throughout the campaign. He's been talking not only about potential fraud at the polls, but about the way the media covers him.
False stories, all made up. Lies, lies. And they take these lies and they put them on front pages. This is a rigged system, folks.
These kind of comments have earned Trump at best a dismissive shrug from most outlets, but the majority of Americans seem to agree. CNN's firing of Donna Brazile for slipping the Clinton campaign debate questions ahead of time may add some fuel to his fire. The dismissal came after Brazile, a longtime Democratic operative and analyst for the cable network, emphatically denied any wrongdoing when asked about it by Fox News' Megyn Kelly when this first arose a few weeks ago.
As a Christian woman, I understand persecution, but I will not sit here and be persecuted because your information is totally false. What you're telling the American people, well, Podesta's emails were stolen. You're so interested in talking about stolen
material. So you deny it.
You're like a thief that want to bring into the night the things that you found that was in his gutter.
Not long ago, the Trump campaign also focused on the high percentage of journalists who made political contributions to the Clinton campaign.
96% of the donations from journalists went to Hillary Clinton. That's an unbelievable statistic for working journalists. I mean, that's a partisan expression of support.
So does Trump have a point that many in the media have been out to torpedo his candidacy? Joining me are Jennifer Braceras, editor at the NewBostonPost.com. Good to see you. And former CNN White House correspondent Dan Lothian. Great to meet you, Dan. Thanks so much for being here. So he says it's rigged. Based on Brazile and some recent events, wouldn't the jury come back at least in part guilty as charged?
I think so. I mean, these are the kinds of things, whenever they come out, it does validate the criticisms that people have whenever you're out there covering a story and they come up to you and say, oh, you guys, it's all lies. You're making all this stuff up. This feeds right into it. And we protest all the time, but this is, not something that it's indefensible. When you're doing things like this, it's no longer just about you. It's about the organization that you're working for, and it's about all hardworking journalists out there who are trying to do the right thing.
Now, you're conservative. I always feel obligated to say, but not a Trump supporter.
Correct.
What's your take on how the media's treated him? Obviously, they loved him last year. We saw that Shorenstein study saying that 60 to 70%, most outlets, including the Times and the Post, positive or neutral
coverage. Right, because he was great for ratings, and they were all in the tank for Hillary and thought he would be the best candidate.
But since that birther Friday, as I call it, it's all changed, has it not, in terms of, it's almost to me like they feel they have an obligation to sink this. Not all of them,
look,
I shouldn't say that.
I always felt that once we hit the general election, the media was going to turn on Trump, and that is, in fact, what has happened. But it's different in degree, but not different in kind from what we saw with Mitt Romney, who, was lambasted as a vulture capitalist. He killed people, essentially by denying, health care. And, he wanted to throw poor people off the cliff. We've heard it all before. George Bush is a racist. There have been these tropes against every Republican presidential nominee in my lifetime.
In that same campaign, there was a Reverend Wright, or the campaign before, who we heard about virtually every day for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks about Barack Obama.
Well, no,
so they were trashing both sides, were they not?
But
that was the McCain race.
Right, but people were quoting what Reverend Wright had actually said. Does anybody really believe that Mitt Romney is a sexist because he said he had binders full of women? We all know what that means. We all know that means he was looking for high-qualified female professionals, and he was recruiting them. Binders full of women.
So you think it's just a matter of degree in Trump land this time around?
Well, I think the media has been singing this song for a long time, and now the wolf is at the door, and nobody believes them.
Yeah, and trust in the media, I should say, not surprisingly. Gallup poll, 32% overall, only 14% Republicans. I hate to put you in a tough spot since I just met you. I love CNN. I should say that as a caveat. And everybody knows Fox News is in the tank for Trump, MSNBC for Hillary Clinton. Randy Kaye, who's a terrific reporter, does an interview last night with a Trump supporter. I just want you to watch this and get your reaction. Here it is.
I'm most encouraged that they're reopening it and they're going to look at it more thoroughly.
They're not actually reopening it. They're going to take another look at what might be there.
There's a difference between they're going to take another look and reopening?
The director never said reopening. He said there may be something significant, and they're going to look at some of these emails.
Is this a hair we're going to split?
I'm just sticking to the facts. He didn't use the words reopening.
To your interpretation of the facts.
I don't know if my memory is short. Since when do reporters debate supporters. If it's Donald Trump standing there, I totally get it.
Right.
This is not atypical. I didn't pick
why
this
is she
out as an
cross-examining a voter?
Exactly.
No, and you're right. I mean, I think you asked a question. He knew exactly what it was that you know, the background to all of this. So I think I do think she went a little farther. But this goes back, not this exact thing, but the notion of really holding someone, their feet to the fire in an on-camera interview like that goes back to what made Anderson Cooper, right? We look when he went to New Orleans during Katrina.
Senator Landrieu.
Exactly. And so since
that's
and we
a
saw
politician.
I know it is, but I'm just saying that there's a certain theatrics to that, and reporters know that when you do something like that, it goes online, it gets released, you can make a name for yourself, you can get a good soundbite, and so that sometimes fuels it. Or if you're on the other side, you say, well, that's a reporter with an agenda.
I regard it as a deliberate attempt to try to make Republican voters look stupid.
So the agenda part.
Well, because that's been the narrative. The narrative has been Republican voters are ignorant, you know, they're small-minded, they're bigoted, and so that's what she's trying to do.
But that's not
with
I mean, you're generalizing as much as I am. Matt Visor piece that I've mentioned only 4,000 times on the show in the Globe goes to Butler, Pennsylvania, interviews the class of '78 high school, almost all of whom are voting for Trump, almost none of whom are misogynists or racist or Islamophobes. There are people who can't afford to retire, can't pay their kids' college, can't go on vacation. So a significant piece of the mainstream media is painting it as it is, don't you think?
No, of course, not everybody and not all the time. But the notion that there are more reporters out there who are pro-Democratic and anti-Republican than there are in the other direction is true.
That's true, but that doesn't mean that it plays out in their daily work, right? I don't think just because more reporters out there might be liberal doesn't mean that that's how they're going to approach.
But should they be making? I said 96% of those contributions. Should reporters ever be making political contributions?
No,
you know what? I would rather.
Wait, let him finish.
No, I think they should not. But if you look on the list, some of the people who are on the list no longer aren't reporters anymore, right? They're big names, Carol Simpson and some others who are not reporters. But if you are, especially if you're covering a campaign or politics or a Washington, D.C. reporter, no, you should. I have never donated. I hope now an email doesn't come out that I was donating to a campaign. No, I know I haven't. No,
well,
I don't donate to campaigns. I've never done that before, and I don't think it's right.
So how do you defend your doing it?
And here's what I think. I think all reporters have a bias, and we should be open about it. And if people know, I'm perfectly willing to tell you right here and now that I voted for Marco Rubio in the primary, and I'm going to write in Paul Ryan in the general. I'm not hiding anything. People know my perspective, they know where I come from, and they can judge my work accordingly. Let's not put up this facade that we're all neutral. Let's have a press like the Brits where people know, you know, Fox is conservative, MSNBC is liberal.
If you make a contribution to Hillary Clinton, you can't be objective in this campaign? You really think that?
No, I'm not saying you can't be objective. I'm saying everybody goes into their job with an opinion and let the voters decide whether their work is objective and fair or not.
I don't think you need to go that far. I mean, I think, yeah, everybody does have an opinion, but I don't think that anyone out there needs to know exactly how I voted, because my job is to present the story, present both sides or all sides in a fair way. And I was going to say fair and balanced way, but
and unafraid.
Right. But you know, that's my job, not to tell you that, hey, I voted this way or I donated money to, because people will always remember that. If you donated money to something, they will frame how they think about you based on that donation.
Right.
You have to hold it there. Jennifer, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
It's a pleasure
This was
to
fun.
meet you. I
Thanks
hope
for
to
having
see
me.
you again.
Yeah.
Thanks so
Great
much.
to meet you.
Nice.